Today's topic is going to be the importance of NAP and local search. And don't worry, I will explain what that acronym means here shortly. So we'll start with that. I'm just going to overview what NAP is, what it stands for, and how it's relevant to you guys as business owners. It's an acronym that we use in the local search community that stands for name, address, phone number, which of course refers to your business name, your business address, and your business phone number. It is, interestingly enough, one of the most important ranking factors. So if you really want to make sure your business ranks well on Google Places, it's important to make sure that you have consistency in the way that your business appears online on different websites when it comes to the way that your name, address, and phone number is listed. Inconsistency in this is basically the way to cause your rankings to tank. I'm going to give several examples during this presentation on what types of things matter and what types of things don't really matter. But in a nutshell, if you can just remember that consistency is the way to go here, that's kind of the key point. I'm also going to be adding another factor. Normally, NAP is kind of what people look at, but with our clientele, we deal with a lot of clients that have multiple domain names or multiple versions of their website, and for that reason, I'm going to be adding that factor in here as well. I have a little thing over to the right here on my screen that kind of shows this is a study that's done every year. I put the reference to where you can find it online. This is where the top local SEO pros kind of put their thoughts together and decide what they think is the biggest impact on ranking on Google Places. And you'll see that consistency of structured citations, which is essentially yellow page directories or business directories online, so the consistency in how you're listed there is the third most important ranking factor on if you rank well on Google Places. Also, just to encourage you all as I talk here, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat bar because I will be doing Q&A at the end. So go ahead and do that. So there's a few different tools that I'm going to kind of show you guys where you can go to see how your business is listed online and how consistent things are. For these examples, I'm actually using a client of ours who is a State Farm insurance agent in Michigan. And I'm just using him as an example here, but anything that I go over would apply to any business. So not just him. Yext.com is probably the most popular tool that exists out there. They're a big, large company that deals with business directory listings. A lot of companies partner with them. So a lot of times you go onto different companies' websites and you'll see a tool that looks identical to what I'm going to show you here, and it probably is the same tool because a lot of different websites will use Yext tool but kind of brand it as their own. So if you've seen something like this in the past, it's most likely coming from Yext. In this example, basically you go to yext.com and you can enter in your business phone number and it will pull all the different places that you're listed online and how your business is listed. So in this example here, you can see that Michael Church State Farm Insurance was the business name I typed in. The phone number is the 517-351-5433. And you get this nice little report that spits out that shows all the different places that Michael Church is listed, what his phone number is listed as, what his address is listed as. And, you know, the first thing that kind of jumps to your mind is like, holy cow, he's got 140 that are wrong. There's 140 errors detected. So I want to kind of clarify on a few things because something to keep in mind, this tool is obviously designed to kind of entice business owners to sign up for Yext service. So part of the kind of scariness of how this all looks is a little bit of a sales strategy. Not to say that, again, consistency is important, but I'm kind of going to explain what types of things you should be concerned about and what types of things you honestly shouldn't stress about. So in these examples, I'm going to break down a few of them. And you can see on the left what I mean by business directories is like Yahoo Local or Facebook or Yelp is a really popular one. These are all different business directories that Google is constantly looking at to see how you're listed. Another example of a really great tool is expressupdate.com. This is a huge major source to Google specifically. So how you guys are listed there has a huge impact on how Google lists you and how they create listings on your behalf. This is an example scenario of what you would not want to see. So I did an example here of a business. I typed in their phone number and it came back with 3 totally different listings all using that phone number. You'll notice the first one is listed with this lady's name twice in, I guess her last name, comma, her first name is listed twice there. It's listed at 5920 Beltline Road. Then you've got a second listing that shows up with a totally different person's name, same address, and then you've got a third listing that shows up with that phone number, but it's at a different address. It's on Preston Road. So this is the type of scenario where Google gets very confused. They're trying to figure out, who does this phone number belong to, what is the proper name of this business, and when they get results like this, this is what messes up their system and what messes up your ranking. So this is the type of scenario that you would definitely want to avoid. Another tool that just launched recently, which is a really neat one as well, is Moz's local search tool. It has some interesting features where it tries to also list duplicate listings that you have on different directories. Kind of did a screenshot here of the different tabs, but it's another one that you could look at if you were trying to figure out if your business has this problem or not. So how do you fix these errors? Obviously, if you're a business like that one I showed earlier that had 3 different listings, you have some trouble. And Yext.com and MozLocal both offer a service to fix these automatically for you. That's why they have these tools. They use, they have the tools for free in order to help business owners, but of course, they do have a paid service as well that you can sign up for. And I haven't personally used the MozLocal service. We have used Yext service in the past. Kind of things to keep in mind with these services, if you do choose to use them, there are reoccurring annual fees. That's not always the greatest thing. I think Yext currently, their annual fees are somewhere between $200 to $500 a year. MozLocal is a little more affordable. They're $50 a year. And the biggest issue that I kind of struggle with using these tools, and the reason why we don't use them here at Imprezzio Marketing, is because the listings can revert back if you cancel. So if you hire pay for Yext to fix all your listings, and you're paying them $500 a year, and you decide you want to stop paying that at some point, the listings could actually revert back to how they were originally and put you right back in the same situation you initially bought them for. So for that reason, we don't generally use automated tools. At Imprezzio, our clients are all managed and worked on by our in-house team here of employees, where we actually go out and claim every single listing and edit it manually. Sounds really time-consuming, and it is, but it's the only way to make sure that we don't have, constant reoccurring fees for our clients that are really high, and also to make sure we actually fix the problem and it doesn't come back later in the future. So this is an example of one of the directories that came back on that Yext tool, and it was saying this business name is different on Yahoo than it is on Google. So you'll see on Michael Church's State Farm listing on Google, we have him listed as Mike Church State Farm Insurance. That's the exact title we're using. Yahoo, on the other hand, has him listed as Church, Michael-State Farm. So again, is this a big deal? Is this something you should freak out about? Is it going to kill your ranking on Google? I can safely assure you that this client of ours has no problems with their ranking on Google. Google is smart enough to realize that Church, Michael, and Michael or Mike Church is the same thing. So again, little inconsistencies like this is not something you should stress about. When we're creating new listings for Mike, we always make sure we do use the same exact format for him. But it's not something where, this Yahoo listing is going to cause him a massive headache or problem on Google when it comes to ranking. Another example, however, that we found is there is this one listing that came up that has a different name. This is Mike's address, and that is Mike's phone number. But this 1371 East Grand River Avenue, that's his current address, and Andrew Burns, the agent's name in the title, obviously that's someone different than Michael Church. So this is a situation where you have a different address, same phone number, and a different business title. So this type of scenario is not good. Generally this happens. We see it a lot with insurance agents and other industries it might impact are things like realtors, where you have different professionals that are coming and going in an office, but the office phone number and office address generally remains the same. And this is definitely a thing that we run into a lot with insurance agents. So this is the type of scenario that we would want to clean up. We'd want to make sure that we found this listing and changed it so that it listed Mike's name instead of Andrew's name. Currently, there's not a whole lot of references out there for this Andrew Burns guy, so it's not going to really impact Michael in a negative way, but it is, it's not helping him in the sense that this particular directory isn't counting towards anything because it's different. So we want to make sure that we can edit it so it does count, and that will, obviously work in a positive manner. A big thing that I get a lot with addresses, people freak out because some directories don't list their suite numbers. I see this question all the time in the forums where I volunteer. So you'll see here, there's some inconsistency here with Mike's listing. Some have his suite C listed and some do not. This is, again, something where Google is smart enough to realize that if you're at 2800 East Grand River Avenue, it doesn't matter if you're at Suite C or if you just listed at the address, they realize it's the same business. So again, not something you should lose sleep over. We obviously try to make sure we include the suite number on anything that we submit, but it's not something where I think it would make any sense for Michael to pay to go to get someone to fix all these ones and add his suite number. So phone number inconsistencies, this is probably the worst out of all the different scenarios, because your phone number on Google is basically like a social security number. It is what identifies your business. So that's the way that Google sorts information, is primarily by phone number. Your phone number is definitely the most important thing. So one of the listings that this tool pulled up was the Super Pages listing for Mike, and that is not his phone number. That 2261 number is not his main number. In the screenshot, actually, the alternate number that is listed there, the 5433, that is Mike's main number. So one of the things that our team would look at and investigate is we would see, okay, where did this listing originate from? It's kind of hard to see on the screen here, but I was able to look kind of in the source code at the bottom. This is actually a paid ad through the Yext program. So Michael obviously has some type of paid account going on here that has wrong information entered in. And this is one of those scenarios we definitely would want to make sure we got him to fix. It actually just so happens the 2261 is actually his fax number, not his phone number. So he doesn't actually have a tracking number on his Yellow Pages ad, but he has a mix-up between what is his fax and what is his phone number, and it could potentially confuse Google. With phone number scenarios, we run into this all the time with our clients. I'd say 99% of the time businesses are not even aware they have these tracking phone numbers out there. We'll send them a listing. We'll be like, hey, this listing lists a different phone number for you. Is this something you signed up for or paid for? And they don't have a clue what I'm talking about. So a lot of times we bring this to the attention of the business owners, and it usually is pretty hard to catch in the sense that it's normally a result of a paid ad. So I know Yellow Pages, a lot of times to help track their advertising better, they'll be like, we'll give you a free tracking number. And although that sounds great, it can actually really hurt your local search efforts. So never a good idea to have a tracking number on any type of Yellow Pages listing. And I'll kind of explain this later, but this is different than if you have a tracking number on Google AdWords, for example. I'll explain that later. Often we can't fix this ourselves. We have to get the customer to fix it. In this case, with Michael's situation, it is a paid ad, so I will have to go back to get him to contact Super Pages in order to get it fixed. Super Pages obviously isn't going to take my call and edit a paid listing because I tell them to. So often if it's a paid listing that you as the business have set up, you are the only one that they'll talk to fix it. But obviously we'll make sure to point it out to you so that we can get it rectified. Domain names. So you'll notice I used a lot of State Farm examples here, and that was just to keep the consistency for the example. But this is a particular example of a business that has several different domain names that actually all go to the same website. So viaderoinsurance.com is one, brayinsurance.com is another, statefarm.com / a whole bunch of stuff is another. And basically, this type of scenario we see a lot. Lawyers have it a lot, but normally their domain names actually pull up different websites, so it's even kind of a messier scenario. But in this case, having multiple domain names is definitely not really a good thing. Normally you'd want to keep everything consistent as possible. You'd want to try and make sure that you have one domain name that is strong, that is linked everywhere, so that Google can make sure that they give you proper credit for it. And then I should also probably clarify that that example that I used, her ranking is actually fine because her efforts in this space are so much higher than any other insurance agent in her town that it doesn't matter how many domain names she used, all their other factors are so strong that her ranking is totally fine. If she was, an insurance agent in Dallas, for example, probably would be a lot harder for her to rank given the fact that she has so many domain names, and it's definitely something we don't generally recommend. But you can have multiple domain names and still do it right. It depends on the technical aspects of how the domain is set up. If you're in the case where you don't know if you've got multiple domain names, you're not really sure if they're set up right, feel free to just reach out to your Imprezzio Marketing representative, and we can definitely give you specifics on if your domain names are set up correctly or not. Also, this is a huge point. If you have a domain name that you purchased and you're just using it for Google AdWords or some paid listing on a banner ad on some site, that is very different than using it in local search. So by local search, we're talking about local business listings like Yelp and Yellow Pages and Yahoo Local and Google Places. Those are the places that you want to make sure you have consistency. If you're using a tracking domain in AdWords, it's not going to impact your ranking on Google Places whatsoever in any type of negative way. So don't worry if you're using it for that purpose. Another thing that we'll also have our team normally look at is if Google even recognizes the domain names, because half the time just because you have a domain name doesn't mean that Google's aware of it. It has to be listed somewhere else in order for them to find it and crawl it. So what matters overall? There's a few things that matter to this thing, and this is where it becomes really important, the quantity of listings. So like I mentioned earlier, that one listing that we found that referenced Andrew Burns instead of Michael Church, there was only one of them. Nowhere else was this Andrew Burns referenced. So is it going to hurt Michael Church? Probably not. It's just one. We would still want to clean it up, but it's not going to make a massive impact on his ranking. There are a lot of other businesses where we find that there are more references to their old address than their new address, or there's more references to their old business name than their new business name, and that is definitely where you run into problems. If you have like one listing out there that lists a random person, absolutely get it fixed, but don't stress about it. Age of the listing definitely matters. This is part of the reason why it takes longer for new businesses to rank. You guys would be amazed at how many spam listings get created on Google every day. It is kind of rampant. So Google definitely has in place procedures to make sure that, just because there's 100 new listings that pop up overnight for a business, that doesn't necessarily tell Google that it's a real business. They do trust listings that have been around longer. So this is part of the reason why if you've been at an address for 20 years, let's say, and then you decide to move, it has such a impact on your ranking on Google Places because you just got rid of 20 years of history, and now you're starting with brand new history. Also, a common misunderstanding is people think that just because they go create 100 listings today on different directories that Google's going to instantly know they're there. We always have to give Google time to obviously find these listings and make sure that they index them and they're aware of them. So age is definitely important. Authority of listings is also important. So certain things matter to Google more than others. For example, yellowpages.com is a very strong and reputable business directory. It's well known, everyone's heard of it, it's very authoritative, and it's very reputable. So having a wrong listing there is a lot worse than having a wrong listing on that example directory that I showed earlier called local database that I'm guessing 90% of you probably haven't even heard of. So definitely one of those cases where when we're checking for it on behalf of our clients, we always look at the authoritative ones first. If those are wrong, we know there's a problem. If it's just the odd one here or there that's listings I've never even heard of or our client has never heard of, usually it's not going to make a huge negative impact on their ranking. So I want to give you guys an example of a bad scenario, like one that you wouldn't want to have yourself in. So again, using State Farm as the example just to keep it consistent. This is an example which we run into a lot where this business has moved. So they used to be at 3527 McKinney Avenue in Dallas, and then according to his website, he is now at 3400 Carlisle Street. This happens a lot. Obviously, his website lists his current address, but when you search him on Google, Google only has one listing for him. Generally, that's a good thing, but it's at his old address and it's marked as closed. So what would this mean? Well, first of all, this listing's not going to rank anywhere. If he's trying to rank for something like Auto Insurance Dallas, it's not going to happen because there is no active listing as far as Google's concerned. This is a closed business. It doesn't exist anymore in Google's eyes. So this is kind of a nightmare that you would not want to have where Google has your old address. Also, it could result in obviously your customers showing up at the wrong place, trying to get driving directions using Google Maps, and then they show up at an office that you're no longer at, which is obviously not ideal for anyone. And this is an example of a business that has two different business names. So in this case, we've got, I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, but it's like Decia Ames, State Farm Insurance, and then you've got Naramore Marcia. And I'm assuming what this was is probably two different agents. One used to own the book of business, and then maybe the business got a new owner, which we see, again, like I said, a lot in the insurance industry, real estate industry. Dentists have it happen a lot because they have doctors coming and going at their locations. So this is an example scenario that you would not want, where Google actually has 2 listings that they've created. Whenever Google's actually created a second listing for you, it's a sign that there are a lot of other sources out there that are referencing it. Google doesn't just create listings because one directory has one minor thing that's wrong. They will create a new listing if there are several different important directories that are referencing information that is different than what they have. They're like, maybe this is a different business. You'll also notice the suite number is left off of one. So one of them has it at 5920 Beltline Road, suite 315, and the other one does not. And before you say, hey, wait, I thought suite numbers didn't matter, again, this is a case where you've got a different name and a slightly different address, and the combination of the two is different enough that Google isn't 100% sure it's the same business, so they create 2 different listings. And the way it works ranking-wise is, if every directory that you're listed on gives you a point, and you've got 50 that reference the first way and 50 that reference the second way, if this person actually fixed the problem, they would have 100 points. Currently, they have 2 listings that each have 50, so they're both probably not going to rank anywhere. As far as more education on this, there is a video that is really great. It's pretty in-depth, so I would encourage you guys to go watch it if you're well-educated or you've had a lot of experience like looking into local search things. If this is like your first time ever hearing of NAP, the video might be a little confusing to you, but definitely still check it out. It's a video that shows you how business listings are made on Google, so how Google takes the data and actually creates listings. Pretty fantastic in my opinion. And then I also wanted to kind of quote one of the other local SEO experts in the industry named Darren Shaw, who's a fellow Canadian. He has a service too as well that kind of focuses on building different business citations or directories for businesses. And he says that they basically, when they're doing it, they cover the 50 most important sites. So they look at the ones that are the most important to Google. So, there's definitely more than 50 directories out there. But as you start getting into lower quality sites that don't really matter, he's like, we used to have a service that would clean up everything, and they would go into every single little directory and have like 300 or 400 of them and make sure they're all optimized and listed correctly. And he realized that was a little bit of an overkill. You don't have to worry so much about the lower quality sites, but a lot of them you can't even update. There's no mechanism. You go to the site, there's nothing there that will allow you to update it. So again, the purpose of us doing this presentation was to kind of educate you guys on the things that are important as well as the things that aren't. Because I know a lot of you guys get phone calls from companies, and different companies have different approaches and stuff, but it's definitely important to know what things you should be worried about and what things you shouldn't be worried about. So hopefully we've clarified that a bit for you. I did get a question here. I'm just going to look through the questions in the chat box now. I will be sending out a list of upcoming webinars and topics, so please look for that. I believe the next one that we have on the list to do is going to be in regards to black hat SEO tactics. What are popular SEO tactics that companies are using these days to get their clients ranked on Google. Really good idea for you guys to all be aware of them so that you know what to avoid and the kind of practices that Google will technically penalize you as the business owner for doing. And then we're going to be trying to do one every couple weeks after that, so I will definitely be sending out a list of the future ones and what times they're at. If anyone has any other questions in regards to this, feel free to reach out to your marketing consultant here at Imprezzio, or if you want to email me directly, my email is joy@imprezziomarketing.com, and I just definitely encourage any type of feedback on topics that you want us to cover in future webinars. Just want to thank you guys all for your time, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.